Trustees going to be checking for quorum. Trustee Arts here. Trustee Dawson.
Present.
Trustee Didavitis. Trustee Erhardt. Trustee Gauss. Can we get the trustees to come to start our meetings? I think there are a number of you who are here in the building, so if you can make your way to the seat. Yeah, I don't think there's enough people. We'll just wait for a few. We'll wait for a couple of minutes and do a quorum again. Quorum check again.
Button three. Button three. Push everything button. Room is dim. Now press the third button from the top.
Okay, trustees, we are going to do a quorum check, roll call again. Trustee Arts is here. Trustee Dawson.
Present.
Trustee Didavitis is here. Trustee Erhardt. Trustee Gauss. Trustee Hassan. Trustee Hastings. Trustee King is here. Trustee Laskin is here. Trustee Lee. Of course, here. Trustee Lalka Rutman. Trustee McLean. Trustee Nanziara. Trustee Patel, Vaishya Patel. Trustee Pei. Trustee Raja Kulasingham. Trustee Rajwani is here. Trustee Sriskandaraja.
Present.
Trustee Williams. Trustee Wang. Okay, Trustee Wang is here. All right, do we have? Good evening and welcome to our January 2025 regular board meeting. If I can ask everyone who's able to stand for the land acknowledgement and the national anthem. We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Please join me for the playing of O Canada. Thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda? Trustee Williams? Sorry, who was the trustee who spoke? Trustee Goss? Okay. Trustee Williams and Trustee Goss. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Trustees, as we move into celebrating board activities this evening, I will be kicking off things with some words about January, as January is Tamil Heritage Month. It's a pleasure for me to bring some remarks on Tamil Heritage Month as a Tamil Canadian myself, but also more importantly, as somebody who was fortunate 16 years ago to initiate Tamil Heritage Month as a York Region District School Board trustee at that time. It is heartening for me to be able to speak today on Tamil Heritage Month and the growth the Tamil Heritage Month initiative has had. When Tamil Heritage Month was initiated in 2010, prior to that, if you reflect back, those who are old enough to remember those times, Tamil community particularly had a lot of negative stereotypes and profiling that happened in the quote-unquote mainstream media. In the 90s around quote-unquote gang violence and youth violence, and in 2000, a lot of the news coverage was about the protest, not contextualizing why the protests were taking place on the streets, but with a very narrow kind of image that was portrayed. There was some need to build relationship and start educating those who are around us around the history, heritage, and contributions of the community. But during those times when we were standing out to protest against the genocide that was happening to Tamils, tens of thousands of young people, many Toronto District School Board students at that time, came out to the protest in thousands. And they were young people who came out because they were connected by the affinity they felt to what was happening. But if you had a conversation with them, they haven't had enough opportunity to learn more about who they are, what their roots are, what their culture and ancestors were about, and so on. So at that point is when I initiated this as a way to both do work that can actually help our next generation of Tamil youth to understand their roots, their heritage, and feel empowered about who they are and what their ancestors did, and also to build relationships. So these negative stereotypes and images that have been deliberately, to a certain extent, created about the community can be dismantled. And fast forward 16 years, and now as I attend Tamil Heritage Month, most of the performers are people who were born after it was started. It kind of ages me as well, but at the same time, I'm glad that the next generation is kind of embraced that And what has happened here when I initiated internal has now gone to all of Canada as a federal and provincial legislation. In the United States, UK, and now Australian government also has proclaimed Tamil Heritage Month. So very proud to be here as somebody who came to this country as a refugee youth fleeing a genocide to East York Collegiate in one of our TDSP schools. And now be back in the same TDSP space as a chair to commemorate and celebrate the Tamil community. That story is not necessarily to take pride in my own success, but it's a story of resilience that is commonly seen in our community as we escaped the genocide and came here. You know, those who started as dishwashers in restaurants learned how to become a chef, and then they became owners of those restaurants. And people who were, families that got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go distribute newspapers so that they can make ends meet, as a family have now become media owners and so on. That talks to the resilience and the perseverance that the community has displayed in this country. But also, the other part is that because we went through this struggle, because we had to face the atrocities, it also gives us the ability to connect to other causes, whether it be committing to truth and reconciliation, fighting anti-Black racism, standing up against anti-Semitism, and standing against Islamophobia. It gives us the kind of lived experience to not necessarily say it's similar experience or same experience, but it gives the framework for connecting with each other and being together to advance equity. So with that, I want to take you through some of the slides that's been prepared by our amazing Tamil Heritage Month committee. I will ask someone to help with moving on the slides. As mentioned, TDSP declared Tamil Heritage Month 4 years after it started in 2014. And the provincial government also has claimed Tamil Heritage. Can I move to slide 1? Okay, I'll move to the second slide. So the theme this year is Yadum Ure Yavarum Kurlir, which means to us, all towns are one and all people are our kin. Now, this sounds like a very casual statement now. This was from a poetry that was written 2,000 years ago. Tamil lasted as a written language many years ago, and 2,000 years ago from a poetry line that talks about global connection to all communities and so on. It fits us as a diaspora community that is dispersed across the world because of the genocide to be able to be in different places and connect with everyone in kinship. So the theme of kinship and interconnectedness of people is important to Tamil people. It emphasizes the idea that regardless of where we come from, we are all part of a large family. Can I move to the next slide? Next slide is, it's still on the poster competition. So as usual, we had our poster competition for different age groups, and we were glad to see a great participation in that. In kindergarten, next slide, please. Next slide. For the first category in kindergarten to grade 3 category, grade 2 student Vahini Naridhan from Bridalwood Junior Public School took home the top spot. So congratulations, Vahini. And for the next slide, please. For grade 4 to 6, Srisha Sadish Kumar, a grade 6 student from Alvin Curling Public School, designed the winning creation. And then the next category, which is grade 7 to 12, Kobika Anandakumar in grade 8 at Edgewood Public School had the standout submission. So congratulations to all of the recipients of these recognition, but also congratulations to everybody who participated. And then finally, the Tamil Heritage Month Planning Committee organized various educational opportunities and celebrate Tamil Heritage Month. So I'll go take you through some examples. To kick off Tamil Heritage Month, the virtual reading with author Meera Sriram was offered to primary and intermediate classrooms. Her book, The Spice Box, was presented to approximately 10,000 TDSP students. Sriram shared her story of a father and son who pass along family stories through a spice box, handed down from generation to generation. Next slide, please. An in-person event will be held at Alvin Curling Public School on Thursday, January 30th to recognize Tamil Heritage Month at TDSP. It'll be a celebration of Tamil heritage filled with student dance performances, poetry, and other highlights. Special thanks to all the members of the planning committee for organizing this event. And the video of the festivities will be posted to TDSP website in the coming weeks. All TDSP classrooms, now next slide, from grade 1 to 8 are invited to attend a virtual workshop to learn Bharatanatyam. Bharatanatyam is one of the oldest forms of Indian classical dance originating from Tamil Nadu in South India. This opportunity takes place January 31st from 10 to 11 a.m. Educators can visit Direct Line for full details. Additional learning, next slide please. Additional learning resources are available on the TDSP Professional Library for all educators. And obviously, the social media, you could follow us on Twitter and hopefully soon on Blue Sky as well. We'll be able to share some of the, you'll be able to see some of the quotes from the thing. I want to finish by thanking Danny Carnevale, the service coordinator, who does a fabulous job trying to coordinate all of the Heritage Month. I also want to thank the two executive lead Superintendent Harpreet Guman and Superintendent Monday Gala. I think both of them are here. Thank you for all the work you do in supporting the Heritage Month Committee. And finally, all the teachers, all the educators and staff who take quite a bit of time out of their busy life outside their job to be able to make sure that the Heritage Month goes smoothly. So with that, I would like to pass to Trustee Raja Kulasingham. Would like to share some reflection as well for Tamil Heritage. Okay, she is not here. She had requested to say a few words, so I will then move on to the next item on the agenda. I think this is the, oh, it's me again. You don't get a break from me today. Now it's the chair's announcement. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to our first board meeting of 2025. I hope all of you found time to rest and recharge over the winter break. With schools back in session, it's time for us to focus on some important 2025 milestones ahead. Let's start with an important announcement we made earlier this month. I want to begin by sharing, or resharing, I guess, that Clayton Latouche has been appointed as the Director of Education for Toronto District School Board. This is a homecoming of some sort for Clayton, as Clayton began his career as a TDSP teacher in 1994. Clayton brings both a wealth of experience and passion for public education to Canada's largest school board, that's us. I know we all look forward to working together when he arrives next month on February 10th. The selection of Mr. Latouche marks the conclusion of 4-month recruitment efforts spearheaded by our Director Search Committee. So I want to extend my gratitude to all the trustees on the committee and also the chair of the committee, Trustee Sri Skandaraja, for their dedication and hard work in completing this very, very important task that we had. So welcome, Clayton. I know if you're watching, we are very, very excited to have you join us. And we look forward to February 10th when we can start this next chapter at TDSP. I want to take this time to actually make sure that I extend my sincere appreciation to Stacy Zucker for her service as interim director. This is Stacy's last board meeting as interim director. She'll continue to be interim director until February 10th. Stacy, your calm and steady leadership has been greatly appreciated during the time of transition at TDSP at this time. And thank you, Stacy, for all the work you do. I know we were in great hands over the past 3 months. The past 3 months had its own list of challenges, as trustees, you all know. And thank you, Stacy, for all your work. Before I continue further on my report, I think this will be a great time for us to present you, our interim director, Zucker, a token of our appreciation. So if you can come join us in the front to receive some flowers on behalf of all of the trustees. And any trustees who wish to join us in the front, please join us.
Yeah. I feel like this way.
You go?
Huh? Yeah, I can. If you're gonna be here, I'm.
Yeah. Trustees, feel free to join.
Yeah, and you are tall, so you can come here. Yes, you are tall, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this works.
no, this
for me.
fine.
I'm the back of the class count again. James and I have been the back of every picture we've ever taken.
There you go.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. I feel like I only have a head.
It looks like me too.
Ah, it's fine. It's perfect. Can we see?
Hey,
see what we
we're
can?
doing back there.
No,
You're too short.
am I? Can you see? Thank you.
Can you stand there for a sec? I'll do it later.
Good. Getting
All
married.
right. She's not going anywhere. This is a token of appreciation as the role of interim director. And thank you, Stacey. I want to also take this time to say that it was great to see the collaborative work of all the associate directors working together during this time as well. So my appreciation to the ADs as well. Okay. So our interim director will be, so before interim director Zucker prepares to move back to her role as Associate Director of Modernization and Strategic Resource Alignment on February 10th. I also want to thank her for the incredible work for the 2024 Director's Annual Report. Or if you haven't seen it or read it, please do. Over the winter break, I had a wonderful time looking back at stories about safe learning environments for all, literacy for lifelong learning, unlocking the potential of young mathematicians, and school spaces that support community growth. It's hard to believe how much good news can be packed into a single report. Please do so. Sometimes we get inundated with some of the things that are happening that are crisis. Obviously, those need attention, definitely, but it's important to reflect on some of the progress that's been made as well. Thank you to Director's Office, the communication team, and all the staff who contributed to this report, and all the students and teachers and all the staff at school level. All right. Over the past 2 months, trustees have collaborated with students, staff, families, and community members to advocate for various programs and resources. In December, a supportive letter for Toronto Youth Employment Program was sent on behalf of the board to Mayor and Toronto City Council. At the council meeting, the related motion was deferred to committee for further review. The further review is necessary as Toronto officials will need partnerships from other levels of government to make this initiative possible. But we continue to advocate for the work that Toronto Youth Cabinet has been asking for around increasing youth employment. Our advocacy for youth-friendly city of Toronto budget continues this week. That's the longest I've had to stand and deliver, so sorry. Okay. Our advocacy for youth-friendly City of Toronto budget continued this week with a joint statement between our board, the Toronto Catholic School Board, and the Youth Cabinet. This message is posted on the TDSP website earlier today. We are calling on additional investment to further support youth and help create city where every young person can thrive. The details of what's being asked is on the report. I don't want to take up too much time, but it is important that we as a school board that has close to 250,000 students continue to advocate at other levels to make sure young people have opportunities to succeed. All right. Talking about additional advocacy work, we also wrote to Toronto's Medical Officer of Health requesting resources to support student and staff health and well-being. On January 13, a letter from Toronto Public Health was emailed to all. They responded, and the response was emailed to all TDSP families. Respiratory illness prevention resources were also shared with schools and staff. Thank you to Joanne Figliano Scott, Acting Director of Toronto Public Health, her team, and their guidance and for their expertise. More importantly, I want to take this time to extend my sincere appreciation to Heather, Louise, and more than 250 Toronto residents who signed a joint letter to trustees to request additional resources on respiratory illness. The health and well-being of our students, staff, and the broader TDSP community are of utmost importance to all of us as trustees. We hope these resources lead to safer and healthier learning and working spaces this winter and beyond. We do have a lot more work to do in this area, and we all recognize that. Sharing information is only one part. We have many policy and procedural changes that we need to advocate to make so that our schools are safe for all students. So I want to thank all those residents who engaged in that advocacy work. It's been exciting to see, switching gears to something that's coming up. It's been exciting to see candidates registering for Ward 11 by-election. January 17th deadline was the candidate nomination deadline. It's passed. Now, a number of candidates are running, and Ward 11 residents and others can visit the City of Toronto website to know more about the candidates, one of whom will end up being one of our colleagues here. So please make sure to share and get involved. As election day approaches on March 3rd, TDSP and the city will continue to share information about the by-election. Ward 11 residents can also make use of advanced voting opportunities on February 22nd and 23rd. Okay. Finally, over the next week, a number of significant days will be marked within TDSP. The International Day of Education on Friday, January 24th, the International Day of Commemoration in Memory of Victims of the Holocaust on Monday, January 27th, Family Literacy Day on Monday, January 27th, and National Day of Remembrance and Action Against Islamophobia on Wednesday, January 29th. Trustees, I encourage all of you to take the time to share a message on these days. Make sure to take these opportunities. There are a number of opportunities that are available for learning. And in addition to learning, but also use these days as a day of reflection so that we can actually continue to do this work on a daily basis beyond these days, because our work continues on a daily basis. To wrap up, we are all excited to start the next chapter at TDSP with a new director next month and to continue the great work that's already being done in advancing our priorities identified in our multi-year strategic plan. This concludes my chair's announcements. So we will now move on to the evening's agenda. Okay. We are now moving on to reports from trustees appointed to external organizations and student trustees. Trustee Williams has provided a written report on the latest OPSPA updates, and it can be found in our blue folder. We'll now move on to student trustees. I invite student trustees Bell, Zing, and Indigenous trustees, student trustee Vestra, to present their report.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Today or this evening, we would like to ask for a moment of your time to go through our student trustee report. We have lots of goodies within it, and I'll pass it on to Jenny to continue.
All right, so to start off, Asta Aiko. So from February 13th to 16th, student trustees will be attending the Asta Aiko's Education Action Conference in Ottawa. And this conference will give us a chance to engage in meaningful discussions such as curriculum, equity, truth and reconciliation, and give us a chance to network with student trustees from all over Ontario.
Thanks, Jenny. Moving towards the Toronto District School Board Student Senate, the first piece we'd like to talk about is the revision of the student leadership policy. So over the past few months, the TDSP Student Senate has been working diligently with staff and us as student trustees to contribute to parts of the student leadership policy. A key aspect of revisions that we wanted was the clarity of the two new learning centers and how that would work. And we were able to, on January 8th, the Governance and Policy Committee was able to pass the student trustees and student senate's recommendation to have the winners of the election be dictated by the two highest scoring / number of votes, regardless of their learning center or where they live. The student trustees and student senate were able to also have the President's Council added within the recommendations. So that will be a wonderful addition going into the following years. Jenny?
For the few previous months, the Student Senate has also held numerous in-person Learning Center meetings all across the board. And these meetings gave students the chance to speak on important topics such as inclusion, the multi-year strategic plan, and the upcoming student leadership policy as well.
Thanks, Jenny. Now on to ongoing business. So the TYC, TCDSB, and our school board, and the main turn that we want to talk about is the 10,000 youth job advocacy piece. And I know the chair kind of highlighted that previously, but we want to talk about it from the student lens as well. So we've been actively participating across different press conferences across the city, going into youth hubs and speaking to whether press or just youth in general. And this advocacy piece ties into the 30,000 postcards that were signed across the city from youth that this directly targets. So this particular piece is something that was really important to us as student trustees and us as student leaders, along with the 235,000 students we represent as student trustees as well. The vote was postponed to later on in this year. However, we are very hopeful for the vote towards the 10,000 youth jobs across our city.
So partnering with the Toronto Youth Cabinet and the Toronto Catholic District School Board, the joint statement was sent to City Council and our mayor to advocate for an increase in youth funding. And this advocacy builds on the success of last year's effort, which resulted in a significant increase in the municipal youth budget from $0 to $2.1 million. These funds contributed to the development of 3 new youth hubs across the city and supported vital violence prevention initiatives.
Thanks, Jenny. Our next piece ties into the student perspective report / school visits. So as you know from my work last year and this year with Jenny and Darian, our really drive and dedication towards the student body and going into their classrooms and meeting them halfway there. And I was privileged to be invited to Albion Heights Junior Middle School to be able to connect with staff and basically host a session regarding equity and inclusion within the classroom and overall student leadership. I was able to lead a masterclass with them during their staff meeting, and it was very much beneficial to both myself and the staff members there. My favorite part, however, of the night, and don't tell the staff this, but it was really connecting with the students from grades 2 to 7. I got so many hugs after my session. I know you guys as trustees go into your schools and be able to connect with your students, but it's really just a joy of being a student trustee. And they're just so lovely and happy. And I'm really smiling right now and giddy because they just run up to you and give you a hug. And we were able to have a conversation about how us as students are able to go in the news and go and speak with adults and press conferences and pieces like that. And they were like, wait, you were there? And I told them yes. And they were like, yes, I can do that too. So that was really a joy and highlight of that particular session as well. Jenny?
That's so amazing. Unfortunately, Indigenous student trustee Darian Westra wasn't able to join us today, but he is spearheading a new initiative aimed to empower Indigenous youth through mentorship. So each month, a new Indigenous student trustee or student leader is selected as a mentee. And so he will provide them with tailored guidance and resources to help them navigate their educational journey and prepared for future leadership opportunities.
Thanks, Jenny. You can close us off.
Okay. So I want to leave you guys with a quote just to emphasize the importance of the work that each and every one of you are doing. And it is that the foundation of every nation is the education of its youth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to our student trustees for representing TDSB so well and continuing to advocate for all of our students. And finally, we have with us Mr. David Lepofsky tonight, chair of the Special Education Advisory Committee, SEAC.
Good evening, and thank you for welcoming me back. As you know, I'm the chair of the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Toronto District School Board. We are parents and representatives of parents' associations of children with disabilities and special education needs. And our role is to give you advice where things need to improve. We meet monthly. We share our views with staff where we suggest areas for reform or improvement and where they are effectively addressed. We move on to other things, but where we don't reach solutions, and we believe it is a matter of significant importance warranting the attention of elected trustees, we bring them to you. Those of you who are on the Program and School Services Committee heard me address this a week ago. Please forget any quippy, funny remarks I used and laugh as if they were new this time. And I'm now bringing this to all of your attention. We've submitted a written brief that summarizes our concern. There are 40,000 students with special education needs and disabilities at the Toronto District School Board. Visualize that if you can. There are more students with special education needs or disabilities at this school board than I would think at any other school board in Canada, than in some cases, more than some entire student populations at some school boards. But they go to a school system which is designed and operated, like the rest of our society, for people without disabilities. And the staff who want to teach all learners, the principals who want to assist them to do so, are dealing with an overall system which wasn't designed for them. Whether it's the buildings, the information and technology equipment, even the teacher training is designed that you are either teaching students with disabilities or students without disabilities. It's kind of inbuilt silos designed into the whole system that you were elected to oversee. Now, the board can't fix all of this, but there are some things it can. We held for the first time ever a SEAC town hall last November, and we invited parents of students with disabilities and special education needs to come to us and answer two questions, trustees, that we urge you to ask, and more on how to do that in just a couple of minutes. And the two questions are, what barriers does your child face at school? And what could we do to make things better? We did not sub-select, we let everyone who wanted to speak, speak. And what we heard was wrenching. I've been doing disability advocacy as a volunteer for many years. And yet I went to bed that night and I had trouble sleeping. The pain in the voices of parents, the recognition that staff are trying to do their best, but the recognition that the system is not meeting their children's needs. Now, we're not for a moment saying that's every single student, nor were they. And we didn't investigate the accuracy of what the parents said, nor should we. But even if we assumed that half of them were either exaggerating or outright incorrect, and I don't have any reason to believe that about any of them, but even if we assume that half of them were exaggerating or were incorrect, trustees, we have a big problem that needs to be fixed. Now, the initial reaction that you might think is, we need more staff. We do. We need more funding. We do. But that's not the answer or the whole answer. There are things that can be done here, and that's what SEAC has been focusing on. I'm here to address one of the staff turned to us last winter when I first became chair and said, look, you folks raise a lot of stuff. Can you set a few priorities? And that's a perfectly reasonable request. And we have. I came to you last fall with one, which was supported by a resolution that was passed, I believe, by everyone on SEAC without dissent. I'm here on the second one. In a nutshell, we heard from any number of parents whose students' special education and disability needs are not effectively being met. Now, this school board has the biggest challenge of any school board in the country because they got to figure out how to do this with individualized plans for 40,000 students. That is an enormous project. And it's quite possible that despite the hard work and dedication of everyone, all the good written policies at the top, all the dedication of the teachers in the front line and the education assistants, it's not going to work every time. And we need a safety valve where parents, when they reach the point of upset that we were hearing, and then I'm sure you get calls about, that there's a way to raise their concerns and try to get them resolved. Now, the board has one. Actually, it's got two. The one that's mandated by the ministry is called the Concerned Parents Protocol, and you can always file a complaint with the Human Rights Commission. Here's the problem. It's great that they're out there. They haven't solved the problem. So we could recite them and recite them until the cows come home. They've been there for a long time. The problem persists. And so what we have come to you to say is we need something additional. It needs to be drawn on, or it needs to be done. Parents need a place to go where the people they're going to call have these advantages. Number one, they have specialized expertise and experience in educating students with disabilities. And that doesn't mean just taking a special ed or 2 additional qualification courses. It means real hands-on solving problems, teaching the kids experience, and a lot of it. They need to be able to go to people who will give, to use a overworked term, a sober second thought. In other words, people who weren't involved with the original decision, people who aren't overseeing the people who were involved in the original decision, who are completely independent, who could take a look, talk to everybody and say, hey, can we work this out? And see if they can find a way to solve it. Now, do we come to you with an idea of what generally it should include? Yes. Are we asking you to vote on it tonight? No. But what we are saying, recognizing the role of trustees, we've identified this as a priority. And we've asking you, as the elected trustees who set the policy priority and directions of this board, to say it is a priority to improve this. The staff can work with us and have said they're, we're beginning a dialogue on a number of how we're going to go about doing this. We haven't completely agreed, but this board's got a lot of issues to deal with. God knows, the Lord knows, you all know more than anyone. But we tend to get lost in the shuffle. Or our major priorities, like the ones that we heard about on November 4th, do. Now, was that just a few people telling us their stories? It doesn't really represent anyone? I can tell you, absolutely no. It is the same thing that our members of SEAC have heard from their associations regarding different disabilities. It is what we've heard from other boards. It's not unique to this board. But you know what? This board has an added disadvantage and an added huge advantage. The added disadvantage is because it's so big, there's a higher risk of kids getting lost in the shuffle. And a teacher who wants to do the right thing not being able to get what they need, or the principal not being able to line it up, or something not working. So we need something extra, some cookie cutter thing for the ministry. One size fits all doesn't fit all. A system from the ministry that you go to raise concerns with a superintendent, whether it's about your child's disability needs aren't being met, or you want to get on a different soccer team, or some other problem that has not the same order of magnitude. No, that's not specialized. Going to the superintendent who may actually have been involved in the discussions over what the child's needs, how they're going to be met. Well, that's not a solution either. You need someone from the outside whose specialty is this and who can just help see if they can broker a fix. Will it work all the time? No. Will it solve more cases? Absolutely. Can we just experiment in one school, try it out, come up with something? If that doesn't work, try something else? That's what we should be doing. I said we have a disadvantage and advantage. The disadvantage we have is that TDSB is so big, it's easy to get lost in the shuffle. It is got a huge advantage. Because TDSB is so big, we could say that the people who are going to help with learning vet problems at Learning Center 2 could be from Learning Center 1. They're not so far away, but they're independent of the people making the decisions. There's ways to do this. It's not got to be a big thing where, oh my God, we got to get money and we don't have the money and so on. Let's figure out what we can do with what we can. Let me conclude by saying two things. Number one, what we're asking you to do tonight, if the staff come back to you and say, oh, this is all operational, the answer is how to do it is operational, but that it's important that we need to come up with something is policy. And that's what we elected you to decide. And the second thing I want to say, and with this I'll conclude, we had an incredible experience on November 4th. The parents were coming to us and thanking us for being there and open and wanting to hear from them. We invite you, each one of you, in your ridings, to hold your own special education town hall. And if you want some tips on how to do it, guess what? We figured it out. We're happy to share it. The two questions: what barriers to face? How can we help you out? How can we do better? If you do that, and if you do it, let us know at SEAC. We'd be happy to see if we can get a member of SEAC to volunteer their time to come to your meeting and be there to listen to. This could generate real change. They need a chance to be heard. We started it. You can continue it. But they need a chance to be heard when they are actually facing these problems. And that's what our motion addresses. Subject to any questions you have, that's what we brought to you today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. David Lepofsky, for taking the time today to be here. I wanted to check if any trustees have any questions to ask. Okay, okay, Trustee Earhart.
I don't have a question, but I want to say thank you, a sincere thank you for coming and for holding the town halls. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. David Lepofsky, for both attending today, but also your continuous relentless advocacy for special education and accessibility in Ontario. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Right. We are now moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is Director's Leadership Report. So I would like to ask and invite Interim Director Stacy Zucker to present her report.
Thank you, and through the chair, good evening, students, staff, community members, and trustees. Since this is the first board meeting of the new year, I would like to wish you all a happy new year if I hadn't had a chance to speak to you yet. And I hope all of you had a restful winter break with lots of time with friends and family. For TDSB students and staff, I hope 2025 brings a lot of learning, laughter, and good health to all of you. As I begin, I want to echo the chair in flagging the days of commemoration that are taking place next week. Monday, January 27th is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and this year marks the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz, Birkenau, and honors the 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust, including 2.5 million children. We also reflect on the survivors and the ongoing impact on their families and the larger community. To commemorate the day, TDSB's Jewish Heritage Committee is offering a live webcast for middle school students featuring Michelle Gleed Goldstein, founder of Carrying Testimony and daughter of Holocaust survivor Bill Gleed. In addition, Wednesday, January 29th, is the National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City mosque attack and action against Islamophobia, honoring the 6 lives lost in 2017 attack on the Islamic Cultural Center of Quebec City. This tragic event forever impacted families, injured many, and deeply affected Muslim communities everywhere. To commemorate the day, The Equity, Anti-Racism, Anti-Oppression Department, in collaboration with TDSB's Islamic Heritage Committee, is offering a virtual interactive storytelling session around the book, The Boldest White, A Story of Hijab and Community. Our schools must be safe places for everyone where they feel that they can belong, are valued, and can thrive. We've circulated resources that are available for educators to learn and build a critical consciousness about Holocaust education and anti-Semitism, as well as Islamophobia. In addition, today is Bell's Let's Talk Day. TSB reaffirms its commitment to making mental health and well-being a priority every single day. This year's theme, the Year of Action and Change, Youth Mental Health, inspires us to go beyond conversations and actively break down barriers to mental health and support students and communities. It serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of continuing supportive conversations and actions about mental health and working collectively to change the stigma that surrounds it. TDSB's professional service staff, support service staff, have developed a wealth of identity-affirming resources for students, staff, and parents, caregivers, and guardians. These tools support school communities to better understand and support one another while fostering environments that are identity-affirming, inclusive, and strengthen circles of care for students. TDSB is proud to be a part of the critical work in action, advancing strategic programs, and supporting those that prioritize children and youth mental health. We are committed to changing the narrative around mental health and ensuring every student feels seen, heard, and supported. Switching topics, earlier this month, we made some updates to our budget communications material to make them more accessible to wider audiences. The budget webpage on TDSB's public website has been completely refreshed to highlight some of the current pressures we are facing across the system. We added a new fact sheet and created some social media materials for trustees to share with their communities. In particular, we created a graph highlighting the gap between current funding that the board receives and inflation, showing why we're facing heightened budget pressures today. In the coming months, we will continue to add to this suite of communication materials as our finance team continues to collaborate and work closely with the communications and public affairs team. We will also be attending a community budget consultation later this week with the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Finance as the provincial government prepares for the 2025 Ontario budget. As we are aware, we continue to work with Power School in relation to the data breach that they experienced between December 22nd and 28th, 2024. And for those of you who are not aware, Power School is the student information system used by TDSB and many boards across North America. On Tuesday, January 7th, Power School notified TDSB and other school boards across Ontario and North America that they had experienced a data breach. I'm grateful to the TDSB cybersecurity team who promptly activated our response plan, taking immediate steps to ensure that our critical systems remained operational. TDSB can confirm that our environment is secure and there is no ongoing unauthorized access to any data, either stored in Power School's student information system or elsewhere. Power School has received confirmation that the data acquired has been deleted and that the data was not posted online. Nevertheless, TDSB continues to take this incident very seriously and is working with Power School to ensure that an incident like this does not happen again in the future. And we will continue to provide additional updates as we receive them. Information on this evolving situation is also available on TDSB's website. I want to highlight an initiative that took place last month that involved students from Weston Collegiate Institute coming together with SVN architects to share their insights and ideas for the Western Loop project, which is a 4-kilometer multi-use trail connecting 74 acres of green space. The initiative aims to enhance accessibility and appeal of Weston's much-loved parks, creating safer, more inclusive community spaces. The architects shared that this is not normally how they conduct these renewals, but they wanted to involve student voice and perspectives. And during the session, students proposed improvements and other features to show as they shared their personal experiences in the community, including how they wished parks had easier access and clearer routes, and noting that taking better care of parks would improve safety. I wanted to highlight this example to show the importance of incorporating student voice. This collaboration shows the power of community-driven design. By listening to student voices, the Western Loop is set to transform these parks into vibrant spaces for all. During my time as interim director, I've gotten to know even more TDSB students and continue to be impressed with their thoughtfulness, creativity, and tenacity. The excellence of our students is not surprising because of the work and support of our staff, community partners, and families. It's intentional and it's consistent. I'm grateful to everyone who supports the learning and the well-being of children in this city. And since this is my final board meeting as interim director, not my final board meeting, I want to thank trustees for their collaboration, support, and trust. And to our senior team, TDSB is lucky to have you. Thank you for sharing your ideas, your time, and your expertise. Your support has been unwavering, and I know that each decision that we made is better because of your diverse and thoughtful input. I look forward to continuing to support TDSB students and families. And this concludes my leadership report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Interim Director Stacy Zucker. We will move on to the next item on the agenda. Trustees, you've looked through the agenda already. This is a time to declare any possible conflict of interest. Trustee Laskin.
To declare a conflict of interest in an item in the private session because my daughter is a teacher.
Thank you. Any other declaration of possible conflict of interest? Okay. Seeing or hearing none other, we will move on to the next item. This is to pass all the matters that needs to be decided without discussion. Trustee Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. With the indulgence of my colleagues of the board, is it possible for us to lift 14.4 bracket 7, which is the advocacy for mandatory equity, diversity, and anti-racism certification for K-12 teachers, to just have a more holistic conversation within this boardroom, because I think this is a very important advocacy on a very important topic that will affect not only our teachers, but also every teacher in Ontario. It was previously discussed in the Programs and School Services Committee, which I feel like it's a great forum to have that discussion, but it doesn't include all of us, and it doesn't have the necessary, I think, public audience that a board meeting might have. So I know I'm asking for this late, but I'm just asking for that indulgence from my colleagues of the board.
So Trustee Lee, since it was not requested for trustees, process would be to have 2/3 support to lift it off consent agenda. Is that right? Okay. Do you wish to move to lift it, or do you want to move to lift it? Okay. Can I have a seconder to lift the items? Trustee Nanziara. All right. Are we voting on e-scribe? Is there? I think you've already spoken on it. So.
Clarify the vote.
Sorry, it's the motion is to lift the item. So if you're in favor of lifting the item, you would vote yes. If you're not in favor of if not in favor of lifting the item, you'll vote no. And in favor needs to have 2/3 to lift the item. She's working on it. You're just getting it on eScribe. You want to do it? Do you want to do show of hands or? Okay, let's do show of hands then. So you got it? Okay. Trustee Nunziata in favor? And no? Trustee Sriskandaraja? Trustee Sriskandaraja, are you there? Trustee King? Good. So that's not 2/3. So it's not set for 2/3. So what is 2/3? How many do we have? 17 people? So that's not 2/3, yeah. So we'll need 12 to pass, right? We'll need 12, right? If it's 17, at least 12.
Yes.
12. Okay, so that's did not pass to lift the item. Okay. Okay, any other? So the items that were lifted is 14.2, number 4, 14.3, number 5, 14.4, number 6. Those are the 3 items that have been lifted. All the other items on the agenda are part of the consent agenda. Any discussion on this? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder to decide on moving all the items that are without discussion? Trustee Arts, Trustee Williams. Okay. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. So now we move on to the items that have been pulled out of the, I don't think that's the item. It's 14.21. It's not there. So we're just waiting for the right item to appear on the, so. Okay. This is related to revisions to board member code of conduct, P074, honorarium for trustees policy, pregnancy and parental leave policy, and board bylaws. It's on page 59 of the agenda. Anyone wish to speak on this item? Trustee Arts?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment that was shared earlier today. Sorry, I didn't realize this one was coming up right first thing. Just for context, and so everybody's up to speed, if you didn't get my email earlier today or weren't at GPC, new legislation was passed some time ago, Bill 98, the Better Schools and Outcomes Act. Since it was passed, the provincial government has been rolling out different sets of regulations in alignment with that bill. So one of those pieces of regulation hit the ground, sorry, for lack of a better term, or took effect on January 1st. And that one applies to Code of Conduct and Integrity Commissioners. The regulations standardize some aspects of Code of Conduct for all boards and standardize parts of a protocol for Integrity Commissioners, but leave a lot of the details vague. So a big thing. Code of conduct complaints now, under the regulation, have to go to the chair of the board. There is a time limit on them being dealt with by the chair. And at which point, if they're not resolved, they go directly to an integrity commissioner. Provincial integrity commissioners now are independent of the board. They no longer will make recommendations to the board on actions. They can impose judgments and sanctions on trustees themselves. Those sanctions can be missing board meetings, removal of a chair, or prevention from becoming a chair, and penalties to the honorarium up to 25% of the honorarium. Not that it's a lot of money, but these are things that the integrity commissioner can do independently. As I said, however, there's huge gaps. How would a complaint now be managed? How, what are the protocols for the chair of the board? These are not mentioned in the regulation. Similarly, this fall, in September of 2025, another set of regulations will come into effect that is mandatory meeting attendance for all full board meetings or committees of the whole of a school board. And that piece of regulation provides a provision where a trustee can be removed from office for missing one meeting without an excuse or without permission. The permission, again, has to go through the chair. This is an onerous requirement that actually does not apply to any other elected official. So this is a first instance of a process that would remove an elected official from office. It's never happened before, and I will note, is not a requirement of MPPs who voted to put this in place. Anyway, again, there are no protocols. There are very little protocols for how this might happen. So, long story short, in order to protect the chair, in order to protect trustees, we as a board need a lot more work on what are those protocols, what other amendments have to happen to our bylaws and our code of conduct. So in part one, I've added that we adopt the code of conduct as an interim policy because we need to review it. And we will probably make changes. But since the legislation took effect on January 1st, we don't have a choice in the legislated aspects. So we have to have the code of conduct in place. But instead of just adopting it full on, this amendment sets it as interim until a subcommittee, and that is an addition to the recommendation coming from GPC, that we form, as a board, we form a subcommittee. Traditionally, our subcommittees have had 4 trustees on them, so that we form a subcommittee to work on the aspects, the procedural and protocol aspects of all the changes that we now have to undertake. So if there's any questions, please ask.
Thank you, Trustee Art. So I'm going to pass the chair to Vice Chair Patel.
Go ahead, Trustee Shan.
Thank you, Vice Chair Patel. I'm in support. I'm actually seconding this motion because I think this is not a unique issue for us. It's Ontario-wide. All school boards are dealing with this, and they obviously different size and different geographic locations of school boards pose different types of challenges. There is an expectation on the conflict or complaint process for the chair to help to resolve within the first 10 days of the complaint that arrives. And there's not really a lot of details about what resolution means, what type of support is possible for chairs to do that type of work, because chairs come from different fields into these positions across the province. And what external support, how can human resources and people in culture be involved? Can legal be involved? All of those things are not clear. And then it says that the resolution, if it's not satisfactory, needs to be passed on to integrity commissioner. That has a time pressures, cost pressures, and other things as well. But at the same time, how do situations get resolved in 10 days? Even if it's on a path to resolution, can that be counted as a path to resolution? You start to commit to something. So there's a lot of gray areas. somebody who makes a complaint is not going to withdraw the complaint in 10 days, feeling confident that it'll be resolved, because people who make a complaint would want to see the process followed and want to see justice done. So if the person who is being complained against commits to a training, we would like to see the training happen and the person receive that training before somebody can withdraw the complaint. So long story short, it is very complicated, and it is important that we enter this with the right amount of resources to do this right. Again, if the complaint is about chair or vice chair, it can go to any of the other trustees. What does that mean? What role can other trustee play? Do they play just an information channel, or do they play any additional role? So all of these complications need to be answered. Unfortunately, we have to build the flight or build the plane while we are flying because the legislation had kicked in. And we tried, and the provincial body had tried to get more clarification months prior to January as well, which we have not received. So it's not that we waited till the thing came into effect and started asking. So I think it's also the province trying to figure this out too. So this committee will give us the time to consult with other colleagues across the province. It will give us more guidance as information flows in, and it will give us a more robust code of conduct and the procedures and policies that go along with it. So it allows for us to do this work in a more meaningful way. While, as Trustee Arts mentioned, we will have to have something in place. Right now, we have to have a policy, a code of conduct policy to guide us. The next thing I'll say is that a lot of trustees have asked me about the attendance related questions. What is the discretion of the chair? What constitutes an emergency? What about childcare? What about people with other jobs? What about vacation entitlement for trustees, which is entitlement for any kind of workplaces? And so all of these things for a non-paid honorarium-based position makes it very complicated. So we hope we will have clarity by September on those. But this committee, hopefully people who have a lot of time, people have a lot of interest in this kind of work, can sign up, because there's only 4 people, and we want to make sure those 4 people are fully committed in making this work. That doesn't mean the 4 people will be directing stuff. They will bring it back anyways through committee. But I do think that this is important work that we could be actually we could be helping other boards as well, also receiving help from other boards to do this. So I'm happy to support this, and hopefully we can move this through and proceed with these changes that we are experiencing.
Thank you, Chair Shan. I'll pass it back to you, the Chair.
Okay. Any Trustee DWDs?
Thank you. So I want to thank the movers for the work that's gone in this so far. Just a practical question, because we have to set up a committee. Does that happen today? So after this, if it passes, then we have to take some time to choose the folks that want to be in the committee? Would that be the process?
Yes, and if for more clarification, I would pass it to Mandrika.
Sorry? I didn't hear the last part.
Oh, sorry, I would pass it to the governance staff to talk about if you want more questions about our usual process for setting up a committee.
Okay, no, just checking. And thanks again to you through the chair and everybody else that worked on this so far. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Seeing no other speakers, is this on e-scribe or? Yeah. So trustees, the first vote is on the amendment. Shan in favor. Trustee McLean, Trustee Rajwani, Trustee Dawson.
Sorry, in favor.
Trustee McLean? I'm not sure. You can mark him absent, yeah. Okay, it's okay. Okay, that's carried. We will now vote on the amended motion. Mover and a seconder for the amended motion. Trustee Laskin, Trustee Arts. Okay, show of hands or e-scribe as well. Shan in favor. Trustee Rajwani. Trustee Arhat. Trustee Nanziara. Favor. Trustee Rajwani in favor. Good. All right, trustees, that carries as well. So now I think the makeup was determined by the motion to be 4 members of the committee. This can be members from the board, doesn't have to be members just specifically to GPC. So any members of the board can volunteer yourself. Trustee Laskin.
Word, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Trustee Laskin. Anyone else? Trustee King, Trustee Williams, Trustee Arts, Trustee McLean. Okay. Anyone else?
Williams, King, Lee, McLean. One extra, right?
Yeah, you know, I'm just first going to ask for names. If no more names, then we'll decide whether. So there is 5 for 4 positions. King and Williams.
People, then I'll take my name off because I'll attend anyway, but and then we don't have to vote.
Okay. Trustee Arts is taking her name off. That leaves 4 people. Just want to make sure that there's no other one interested. Okay, that's good. Trustees online. Okay. So can I have a mover and a seconder to appoint the 4 trustees on there, Trustee Didavides and Trustee Rajwani? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Congratulations. Sorry. Congratulations to Trustee Laskin, Trustee McLean, Trustee King, and Trustee Williams being appointed to the subcommittee working on bylaw review and code of conduct.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just also to clarify, so everybody knows, subcommittees are open committees. And so anyone can attend at any time during the process. This does need to move very quickly especially on the aspect of the code of conduct because it's already in place. You have the support of staff. And so I would really encourage everybody to attend as fits in your schedule when the meetings come up. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anything else on that item that's done? We've already moved the amendment. So we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is seeking the use of proceeds of disposition to fund the Ward 11 by-election. This is page 75 on the agenda. This was moved by Trustee Lee and Trustee Arhat during the Finance Budget Enrollment Committee last January 9th. Anyone who wished to speak on this item? Trustee Lee?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Late last year, the board voted to conduct a by-election for the community of Don Valley West to elect a trustee, and that came with a $500,000 price tag. When we talked about how we were going to pay for it, the initial thoughts were to pull some leftover budgets from schools at the end of this year, and I think it works out to around $2 per student, and contribute that to the by-election line item so that we can balance our books. When it comes to by-election, this is not an operating matter that we as a board should be planning for. If we put $500,000 aside every year for a possible by-election, that directly affects students. So the motion that Trustee Arhat and myself moved in the Finance Committee is to treat this as an extraordinary expense that's not a part of our daily operations. And we're hoping to ask for permission from the province to pay for this using our proceeds of disposition. And this motion we moved was under the contextual understanding that our balance for proceeds of disposition is in the place where it is satisfactory to cover the demands that we need. So there's actually an excess. Therefore, drawing $500,000 from this pool will not adversely affect TDSB and our future planning in any way. Right. So I hope we will all support this. And we hope, the province can see this by-election as a true extraordinary expense and allow us to draw into this fund instead of actually affecting student well-being. And I understand there are other motions and other additions that, my colleagues might want to add to this. I think they're great ideas, but I will let them speak to it and I will support. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lee. Anyone else wishes to add? Trustee Laskin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I couldn't be more opposed to this motion. If the motion was to ask the province to pay for it, I would completely support it. But as I said, when this was first brought up at committee, I actually felt what was moved was out of order because one is always supposed to have a funding source in order to spend the money. Now, after the fact, we want to use proceeds of disposition. I will not support that. The movers of the motion and those that wanted the by-election should have understood at that time we were taking it from our schools. Proceeds of disposition should be used in rare occasions because this is money that we need to revitalize and build our schools. And I really strenuously object to using proceeds of disposition to pay for a by-election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Laskin. Anyone else to speak on this matter? May I ask the chair to?
Sure. Go ahead, Chair Shan.
Thank you. Going back to the time, I unfortunately wasn't able to attend the FPAC meeting. Going back to the time when this motion passed, it was explicitly asked, what's the source that we are going to be using? Because without a source identification at that meeting, the motion would have been ruled out of order because it was important to identify. And I think the question was asked a couple of times and it was explicitly mentioned where it's coming from. So even though it wasn't written as part of the motion, I think the spirit of the motion that carried that day went ahead based on the understanding that people had of how that money would be pulled from. I do think that proceeds of disposition is not necessarily a reserve fund. It is a fund that is specific to, that we have a crumbling infrastructure. There are places that needs a lot more support in how we maintain, repair, and have state of good repair and so on. So I'm not completely clear how that direction shifted from a decision that was made. But I also heard, maybe this is a question to the chair of the committee or to the staff, there was some sort of a request for the board to write a letter as well. Was that formally a motion or I don't see it in this motion, so just wanted to make sure, because it would make sense to have the staff ask for proceeds of disposition as opposed to having it as a board motion to ask for it as well. And you chair.
Thank you to the chair. At the time, there was a question as to how requests of this nature were done. Staff verified that when requests for use of proceeds of disposition are made, they are made at the staff level. There was discussion at the time as to whether we would send a second letter of advocacy as a board that the chair would draft. For the purposes of that conversation, it was a little awkward for some because you weren't present, and it was thought at that time that we would pass it as it is now and reserve the right to pull it which was done, so that if trustees felt strongly that a letter from the board by the chair was sought, an amendment could be made at this meeting before it was formally approved at the board. So we talked about the letter and the desire to have it, but it was not part of what was passed at committee.
Thank you, Trustee McLean. I'm passing chair back to Trustee Shah. You still there? Okay, all right.
Thank you, Trustee McLean, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to Trustee McLean for the response. I do think this is important for the staff if it passes to seek permission to use it. I do think as trustees, as a board, we have a lot more work to do on this budget. There are a lot of things that are going to come up in the next couple of months that we need to ask the province for. And if we get into into us asking this, adding another ask from this particular body instead of asking for what we need to actually have a decent budget this year, I do think that it takes away the focus of our body as a governance. So if it's possible for the staff to follow with this, I would appreciate that. Not that I'm not comfortable writing one, but I do think that it's important for the board to reserve its ask for what we should be asking in many times more than this amount, to make sure that we have a budget that actually promotes student well-being, achievement, and belonging. The only other thing I'll ask is that if there is a motion to have the Board of Trustees to write something, we should just ask them to cover and reimburse the cost of the by-election, provided that, that I'm sure, the same arguments that were made to have the by-election would be things that if it resonates with the province, then they should reimburse it. In the absence of them reimbursing it, then obviously this request of proceeds of disposition, which will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Shan. I'll pass back chair to you.
Thank you. Any trustees? Any other trustees? I don't have the.
No.
Right. Seeing no other trustees on the list to speak or make any additional amendments, can we have? Do we have a mover? We have the same mover and the seconder. That's Trustee Lee and Trustee Erhard. Okay, moved and seconded. Are you voting on e-scribe? Okay, e-scribe, please.
Tristan Naraja in favor.
Shan in favor. Trustee King. Trustee Hastings. In favor. All right, that's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, the last item that was pulled off the consent. So trustees, those who are here, just a reminder that after we finish the public agenda, there is a private agenda that we haven't wrapped up. So we'll go into private. So please stay after the public agenda gets wrapped up. The last item is on the general interest and seniors day programming, daytime programming, page 87 of the agenda. Trustees who wish to speak on this item? Trustee Didovitis?
Okay.
Thank you. So I had some questions for staff. I thought the report was very thorough, but there was some information on the report that I thought was missing that would have been informative in understanding how the process of coming up with a fee increase occurred. Would you have information about the increase in signups and membership in income that we had from the program in 2024, I guess September, versus 2025? I didn't see that in the report. Maybe I missed it. What was the net growth for the program. To the chair.
Thank you. Through the chair, if I understand the question, if I understand through the chair, just to confirm that I understand the question correctly, you're looking for a breakdown of seniors versus full ratepayers for the courses?
A comparison in income or net loss between September 2024 and the previous year.
Through the chair, we did include in the report the deficit for 2023-24 and the prior year.
Fair. In order to understand the project, it would be helpful to have more information that was included there, right? So we were going to figure, we lost this much. We lost this much on how many people, on what was the total gross income in one year versus the other. That would help me, through the chair, understand what the changes were from year to year.
Thank you, and through the chair, we appreciate the notion of the request for information, and we're happy to take that back because we would not be able to provide that information for you at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay, so as I understand the report, and correct me, right? There's still a net loss for the program, right? And what is that amount?
Through the chair, it's right now we believe it's over 580,000 from last year. This year, our analysis from the fall has been that we have only reached a surplus or revenue of 86,000 from the fall term. To reach cost neutrality, we'd have to, because of past deficits, we'd have to reach somewhere in the range of 500 to 600,000. The proceeds of disposition that were given, that were approved in theory from the Ministry of Education, only are a one-time use of 500,000. And so because our fall term is one of our busiest terms, and right now with all the tweaks and the changes we've made, we're only looking at $86,000 in revenue. We'd have to really accrue quite a bit of revenue in our fall term, our spring and summer, in order to reach that figure.
And do we expect that the increases through the chair, through the program, will allow us to be revenue neutral at the end of this year? Or do we expect further changes of this magnitude for the next year?
So through the chair, we believe that with the proceeds of disposition that have been promised, we would be cost neutral for this year. But going forward, we would need to raise fees in order to reach that cost neutrality.
Do we have a sense of, through the chair, do we have a sense of what the changes to enrollment will be with this set of increases?
Through the chair, the last time we raised fees by 20%, we had a drop of, I believe it was 12% for full ratepayers and 6% for seniors, which was a total loss of average loss of 10%. We took a more conservative approach for our forecasting. We're looking at a potential of 35% attrition based on the fee increases.
And we wouldn't necessarily know yet, but I would imagine that some of the changes to enrollment would be unequal through all the different locations. It would be hard to imagine that it would be equally the same across different locations, correct?
That is correct. It's difficult for us to predict, but we have made our very best guess based on past information.
So it's plausible that we'll get a report coming up through the chair in the next few months that will come back and tell us that because enrollments have decreased by about a third, that we'll have to maybe shut down some of the locations. Is that correct? Is that plausible?
Through the chair, if the trustees are requesting a report, that is something the trustees could put forward as a motion.
I'm sorry, if the trustees? Can you repeat, please?
Thank you through the chair, and staff will be pleased to provide that if that's what trustees would like. Thank you.
So thank you to staff for the answers. I'll just finish off my time, but reminding my colleagues about, the over 100 people who came in and made deputations about the program. They asked us to give them more time, which we did. We tried to find some solutions to bridge over the shortfall in the program. And really what we have are directions from the Ministry of Education on the one hand and constituents on the other. And our constituents are asking us to keep the program going because it has life-changing effects on many of them. And the ministry is telling us to shut it down. It comes to that. Watched the documentary the other day, Netflix, it was great. Join or Die. And the documentary basically based on research in the US, people that participate in groups live longer. As shutting down these programs, people not being able to afford to be on them will have life-changing effects on many seniors. And will have a greater effect on poorer seniors that aren't able to afford the new fees. And I'm not sure that I can support that. And I'm not sure that turning our back on decades of TDSB policy and programming on this stuff is what we should be doing. And we should be trying to figure out a way to continue to provide the same quality service at rates that people will be able to afford. And 1/3 loss of enrollment is significant. So I'll leave that with my colleagues for them to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Laskin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I, from the beginning, support community-based programming. What I'm not understanding is why we're having these discussions when our policy that was passed by this board says these programs have to be cost recovery. Why is this discussion happening? I'm not understanding it. How can we be talking about not making it cost neutral unless we change that policy? So I am very supportive of these programs. I was at this board when we approved it, that they be cost recovery. I am very disappointed that we haven't been able to recover the costs. I am really disappointed that the costs would have to go up in order to make them cost recovery, but I don't know how this board, knowing that that's our policy, can have a discussion about it that's outside of our policy. Is there something in the bylaws that says we can ignore our policy? Through you, Mr. Chair?
Is that a question to?
I mean, I
Is it
don't
a
mean
rhetorical
facetious,
question?
it's a rhetorical question.
Rhetorical.
So I understand staff's obligation is to bring us a report that follows our policy. And that report is the ridiculous increase, but an increase in order that we are in line with our policy. So I guess my question is, how is anything other than that in keeping with our policies? Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff.
Would staff like to respond?
Thank you. And through the chair, I think as challenging as it may be, part of our focus was around achieving cost neutrality based on the policy. What we've brought forward to you was our best thinking as staff in order how to do that. We know that it's not palatable for many, and we understand the impact because we listened to the deputations that took place last year on this issue. but we also made a commitment to get to the point of neutrality. And that's what we've provided trustees our best thinking on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Laskin, do you have any follow-up comments or questions?
Well, again, I absolutely understand the research that my colleague was referring to, the importance of seniors being active. As a senior myself, I understand that unequivocally. I understand that many are not as privileged as I have been, which has an income that can pay these kinds of costs. On the other hand, my schools need educational support for transitioning to make their classrooms inclusive. They need vice principals. They need teachers. And I'm just trying to balance it all. And so it's not just the ministry, I guess the point I really wanted to make. It's not the ministry telling us, it's our own policies. And we've known this for a number of years and nobody has moved to change that policy. So as far as I'm concerned, we don't have a choice here. Staff are obligated to follow the board policies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Laskin. So I'll just read out the names that I have here. Trustee Earhart, Trustee Lee, and Trustee McLean. Anyone else wish to join the list, let us know. So Trustee Earhart.
Thank you through the chair. I'd hoped to move an amendment as part of my time, and so I could wait until others have gone before I can go later on the list if that's okay. Thank you.
So Trustee Earhart, this is a report for receipt. So are you talking about moving a business arising as an amendment or?
I'd hope to receive the report and also move considerations for the director and moving forward.
Okay, so it would be part of amending.
It could be business arising though. I could have the wrong, I apologize, Chair.
No, it could be just adding to this motion where it says it be received and this could be A, and then you could put B and C. So you could make it as a amendment as well. That's fine. Okay, so you want to come back later. That's fine. Trustee Lee.
Through you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank staff venturing to try to figure this one out as we move towards cost neutrality of the programs. And I appreciate Trustee Earhart, you're about to move a motion. I think your heart is in the right place. I would just speak my mind on this one, and I will not prelude you. My colleagues, I think we owe it to our community to use the assets that we have to support anyone who are in need, especially our seniors. They pay the taxes. Some of them, or many of them, were a student of the TDSB, and lifelong learning, I believe, is a very critical thing. However, and I say however, some of you might say, oh my God, James. But however, every dollar that we dedicate into a program like our seniors daytime program or general interest program is the dollar that we divert away from students. When we go through our budget sessions, when we go through our budget planning, we nickel and dime and we spend hours talking about $150,000, which in all essence on a $3.4 billion budget is nothing, but we fight. Amongst this boardroom, sometimes we get very, very aggressive towards each other because we care about our students. And I, as a trustee, cannot face a student or a parent or a staff member to say, the reason why I can't do a little bit more to help you achieve a better academic result or achieve a better employment result is because we subsidized community programs that are not a part of the board's mandate. I want to remind all of my colleagues that the ministry has reminded us repeatedly that we need to use our money for the purpose that was funded for. And a lot of times when we ask for, funding overruns or additional funding or the use of, different reserve funds, the ministry puts a restriction to say, yes, you can use it, but you have to use your money where you should be using our money. So if we continue to subsidize these other community programs that are under the jurisdiction of many other government agencies that are not us, we make it harder for ourselves to ask for more money from the province, to ask for more funding towards public education, because then the minister can just come back and say, you know what, TDSB, you're not even using your money properly. Why should we give you more? So when we continue to subsidize a program like this, we actually hamstring ourselves. So I would ask, all of my colleagues to, this is a report for receive. Let's receive it. Let's commend our staff for the hard work. And I'd like to ask our staff to continue on your current course as quickly as possible to achieve cost neutrality of these programs so that we can, share our resources, but not use money dedicated for charity. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lee. Trustee McLean.
Thank you, and through the chair. This has been an issue around this horseshoe for an extended period of time, and there's no doubt about the value that these programs present to the people who access them and the communities who use them. But I believe we need to spend the money that we have on our task at hand. We have done, over the last year, we changed approaches. There was great public awareness around the challenges of the program, the needs for more participants. There was a grassroots program, a group formed, worked hard, and I understand there's been a small increase, but it hasn't certainly generated the additional members that would get us to cost neutrality. That being said, I do think there's a compromise here that is possible, that is worth considering. Staff has indicated that the last time we put in a big increase, that we lost 10% of the participants. But the suggestion that's being offered today is that the conservative approach that they took, that to what will be required to make it cost neutral, and the high bumps that come with that are done so with the assumption that there's going to be a 35% attrition rate. So the question becomes, what's driving what? Is the over-conservative attrition rate, the increases in the amount, the rates, going to drive the attrition that makes this work? I think we've done this once before. We've experienced a 10% attrition rate. If we factored into the math and the exercise to try to get to cost neutrality and built it in to 15% instead of 35, then the increases that would be required to get to this year's version of an attempt to get to cost neutrality would be smaller increases in nature. It wouldn't take as much of an increase to get, it only takes the current projected levels because you're assuming a 35% attrition rate. And I guess I suggest that that's over conservative in nature. There's no evidence to really support that. And that if we choose to make it 15%, that would require smaller increases in rates, and that might make it more manageable for more people to participate in the program, and yet also let us approach or achieve cost neutrality. So I know there's a motion coming, so I'll leave it to my learned colleague to play with that, and as she will. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee McLean. Trustee King.
I appreciate that we're still having this conversation, and I know that community members do too. When I was running for this position back in 2022, I was able to participate in a debate, which is rare for trustees. I think usually we don't get that kind of profile. And I remember a woman in the town hall coming to the front in front of everybody, and she had a question for me. And this was coming out of COVID, when most people were asking about, COVID recovery and their children. And it was an older woman who asked about how we would preserve the senior programs. And this was totally off my radar at the time. And I admitted that I had no knowledge of how that was funded at the time, but I absolutely appreciated the value of the programs. Well, here I am now, still appreciating the value of those programs and having much more understanding now of how that funding works and what our financial position is, and being able to consider all of that. I can really appreciate the predicament that staff is in. And I think part of the challenge for us is, as trustees, is you go away in an office and you work at it, you're in the papers, you're doing the math, you're doing all the models. And I know that you're doing that with the needs and the benefits in mind, but we don't get to see all of that thinking, and we don't get to see all of the numbers and all of the arrangements. So for me, some of the questions that I have are really about the math and the possibilities. And when I think about the folks that are most impacted, for whom the finances will become a barrier. So I'm thinking of those who are accessing subsidized rates, and I'm thinking of our seniors who have fixed incomes. I sent a series of questions to staff in advance of this meeting, and they may want to address them here. They may want to think about them separately. But I asked the kind of questions like, do we know how many folks are accessing the subsidy? Do we know what figure is represented in that switch from a 30% to a 20% discount for seniors? Do we know, based on enrollment projections, how much that subsidy represents in a dollar value? And I asked all of these questions to come around to try to understand, similar to Trustee McLean, how much enrollment would be needed to offset some of those numbers. We also heard from Friends for Learn for Life, who have been doing amazing work. We heard about a lot of their output in terms of new promotions, gift card promotions that they were running, in terms of extra postcards that they helped print and deliver. We heard about their output, but I don't think we heard about that impact. Do we know how many gift cards were redeemed? Are we able to track the conversions of knowing how many registrants were a result of the efforts that they did? I asked all of those questions to come around to one big grand kind of possibility question. Is it possible that there's a target enrollment that would achieve cost neutrality without a fee increase or the subsidy recipients and the reduction in that discount for seniors, that could be achieved with the strategic support of a volunteer force like Friends for Life? Answer might be yes, the answer might be no, but I think the point I'm trying to make is that there's I think an appetite to keep exploring and not to come out to a conclusion that is in opposition to our policy, but to come to a conclusion that actually is cost neutrality, if we can get there. So I think that motion is coming, asking that if we do have the time, that we could take into consideration some new information from fall and from winter, and continue to grind through those numbers a little bit more. So thank you for that consideration if we get there. And thank you for all the work that's gone in so far. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. And through the chair, thank you, Trustee King, for sharing the questions ahead of time so we could look into some of the answers. We did look at our subsidy users for fall 2024 and winter 2025. Preliminary winter 25 session just has started. We believe that the percentage of users who access subsidies is 2% for both sessions. Assuming a subsidy user percentage of 2% based on our projections, the dollar amount for subsidy learners is approximately $10,000. You asked through the chair, Trustee King, about the difference between a 30% and a 20% seniors discount. What does that represent? Our figures determined that would represent about $75,000. For this analysis, we looked at how fees are currently received, and we have a number of full-time paying users, seniors, and subsidy users. We modeled this on an average hourly rate received from all groups together, and we would anticipate that we would need at least 350 additional learners to reach neutrality. As for the question around gift cards, this was a late campaign idea in December, although we put it forward through LinkedIn, Instagram, and I believe X. We did not, we had no cards redeemed, none were sold. It will, however, form part of our marketing campaigns in all sessions going forward. And so the team is working on that as well. There was also a question about how registrants hear about the program. And that is something that we do ask all users at the end of the term in a survey. So we do collect that data.
Thank you. Your time was. Any other trustees before Trustee Erhard speaks? Trustee Erhard, go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thanks very much to all my trustee colleagues who have spoken so eloquently on a vision that I hear so many of us sharing about our schools being living multi-generational spaces, open in evenings and vibrant. And this is something I do get to experience in my community at Danforth Tech. I am holding a ward council forum on a Friday evening, which is the only evening I can get a permit because there's activities going on. Learn for Life is running in the evenings there. There are no city recreation centers that are nearby in a close proximity, a walking distance to hold those programs. And that is how our community evolved there. I also have the pleasure of being appointed from this board to serve on the management committee of the Apple Grove Board of Management, which is an association of community centers of the municipality located in Duke of Connaught School. I don't speak to it often, but I also have the pleasure of going to the seniors programs that run in our schools every day through that, through serving in that capacity on behalf of this board, and was able to promote Learn for Life programs through the annual seniors fair that they hold, funded by the Ministry for Seniors. In watching, because I wasn't at the Program School Services Committee meeting where this was discussed, but I did watch the video, and I was surprised to learn that that the response from the Minister of Seniors that pointed us to programs are all programs that TDSB would not qualify to access to financially support the programs. And so I do, for anyone that is watching tonight, I do want to heartily encourage continued advocacy for the support for seniors programming in public spaces in our community, including schools. We need this, as the trustee co-chair for community use of schools, we need continued support in this capacity as well. And the 2025 budget consultation does offer through the survey avenues to indicate support for these areas. So I do encourage broad-based public support for that. We are not quite yet at the one-year marks that I can move another motion for board advocacy on this, but I do have every intention to continue. I think it's very important for our communities, for mental health, for economic development, et cetera. So I did share a motion in advance, and I will reword it here because my understanding is that this is operational, and so I do have to move that the director consider these items. And so I'll just move that the director consider incorporating information from fall 2024 and winter 2025 programming before finalizing 2025-26 programming and fees. I hope there is still time to take whatever we can get, whatever insights we can get for that, to also consider alternative fee structures and multi-year phasing of any fee changes, understanding that we do have a policy, but knowing that what I heard from committee was that there may be alternatives to how those fees are structured. And so I do want to invite a look there, particularly where some programs are extensively subsidizing other programs, just to explore what that might look like over time. And also, in particular, what struck me was fee increases for those who depend on the subsidized rates. And I would wish for staff to clarify this. My understanding is that the subsidized rate is for those on government assistance programs, including Ontario Works, Ontario Disability Support Program, Canada Pension, CPP Disability, Old Age Security, Guaranteed Income Supplement, and Guaranteed Annual Income System, the GAIN system. I can't in good conscience recommend a single dollar increase there. For those that are presenting proof of subsidy in these categories, I don't believe we should be charging them $50 more a session, $25 more a session than when how it was presented was just a few dollars an hour, but it does work out to be something given where we are at in our community. I believe that's something I would request that staff take a look at, and I'm hearing it's not a great deal of the financial picture here. So thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Trustee Earhart. The amendments on the screen is moved by Trustee Earhart and seconded by Trustee DeDavitis. Any further comments? One. Yeah, so Trustee Lee has asked to vote ad seriatim, so we'll do that. Anything else, anyone else wants to discuss? If not, we'll go to e-scribe and vote for 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, seriatim.
Ganaraj in favor.
Shan in favor. Trustee Hastings. Trustee Patel. Trustee Patel in favor. Trustee Hastings. How do you vote? In favor. Trustee Hastings in favor. Okay, that's carried. That's the first one of the 3. We'll now move on to the second. The trustees, now e-scribe is open for the second one. Shan in favor.
Ganaraj in favor.
Is that the second one done? Yeah. Thank you. Trustees, we now move on to the third one from the motion. Shan in favor.
Ganaraj in favor.
Trustee Arts. Okay, That's carried as well. Now we vote on the motion as amended. So receipt of the report with the amendments together. Do we need a e-scribe for this or you want? We can do show of hands. Yeah, the mover and the seconder for the report. We need a mover, trustee Rajwani, trustee Williams. Okay, now this is for the full motion as amended. Stand in favor.
Tristan Naraj in favor.
Wong in favor.
That carries. Thank you, trustees. The public items, I think, are done now. So we will not adjourn. We will go into private and finish the private items. So all the senior staff, senior team that are here, thank you for staying and being part of the meeting. We have, can I have a mover and a seconder to go in private? Trustee Lee, trustee Williams. All those in favor? Okay. Anyone opposed? That's carried. So we'll take 5 minutes break before we start private.